The third Saturday of October is officially upon us. Tennessee and Alabama get set to do battle. Helping us breaking it down from the Vols' perspective, Jon Reed of Fox Sports Knoxville joins the show. Jon, appreciate you taking the time, my friend. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Oh, yeah. Happy to be here. Always like getting invited to come do these things. Usually as a radio guy myself, I'm having to book people. So it's nice to be on the other end of it and get to be a guest. So I appreciate you asking me.
Yeah, Jon, absolutely, man. Excited to, again, break this game down with you. First things first, though, let's talk what you've seen at this point from this Tennessee football team. We're essentially at the halfway point of the 2024 season. The expectations, understandably so, were sky high for Tennessee coming in the year. College football playoff or bust type of feelings in Knoxville. You've got the blemish against Arkansas, in which the last couple of weeks the offense has sort of come into question with Nico and some of the inefficiencies. Obviously, the Florida game last weekend, you win that game in overtime. I know that was way too close for comfort for the faithful there. So, your overall takeaways on this football team, Jon, because, again, the running game, the front seven, they are elite level, but there's still a lot of question marks with this team, and certainly question marks that will get answered this weekend.
It's a team that Dolly Parton would be proud of. Have you ever been to Dollywood before? Like, it's been a roller coaster, just up and down, up and down. Like, you asked for my take on the team. It depends on when you ask me, right? Because if you'd asked me, after the first half, against UTC, Nico breaks the all-time single half passing record at Tennessee and looks great. You asked me against NC State, the defense looks dominant. The offense looks like it's found a way to kind of beat Josh Heupel's kryptonite, the 3-3-5 stack. That's what everyone says stops Josh Heupel. And North Carolina State tried that, and Tennessee just ran the ball down their throats. You asked me after Oklahoma, I'm starting to get a little bit worried about the conservativeness of the offense. And then, of course, that really hit a fever pitch after the Arkansas game that I still feel like you really just let get away. And that's been really frustrating. Like, I feel like if you play that game against Arkansas 10 times, Tennessee wins 8 of them at least, but you lost the one that mattered. And then, just last week against Florida, I thought was your typical Tennessee-Florida game. It doesn't matter how good Tennessee is. It doesn't matter how bad Florida is. That game's going to be a sweat for the people in orange. I personally was just happy to escape that game with a victory, which sets up this quasi-elimination game. The whole season kind of comes down to what you do this weekend against Alabama. So surviving against Florida sets us up for this monster week. So I'm content with that game. So we're kind of at a neutral place right now.
Jon, simple question for you. How does Tennessee fix their offense? Again, Nico Iamaleava has been up and down. There's been questions about him over the last couple of weeks. Do they need to take the training wheels off? Is it more so on Nico that he's got to be willing to pull the trigger? Does he need to run the ball more? Does Josh Heupel's play call need to change? There's a lot of different opinions out there. As someone that, again, is as close to this program as anybody, watches this team week in, week out, in your opinion, what is it that this offense is lacking right now?
I was very high on Nico, so I'm coming out of this almost. People think I have a place of defending a previous take because I really wanted him to get some reps last year. While we were kind of wasting our time with Joe Milton going 8-4 and not really getting explosive plays. I wanted him to get reps. So I do think when you get to this year, you are seeing some growing pains, but also, man, the question's so loaded because I do think it's a little bit of everything. I don't mean to cop out, but I do think the offense has been conservative. I do think at times the wide receivers have struggled. I do think at times your offensive tackles have been 2 of the worst in the conference. But also I think Nico just hasn't been very sharp, and I think he's missed some throws, and I think you're at the risk of getting that gunshot quarterback, right, that's used to getting hit and used to having pressure, so now he's bailing on clean pockets. And I do think against Florida you saw some things start to improve, which gives me a little hope moving forward. Because, like I said, I think Arkansas – I think that was a really bad game plan. I think that was kind of a carryover from Oklahoma where you were able to kind of throttle back in the second half, not do anything dumb, let your defense win the game. I think they tried to carry that over to Arkansas, and it didn't work. So I was curious what would happen against Florida. And what I saw, against Florida was a quarterback that was more willing to tuck the ball and run. I think that's very important for him to do moving forward. Early in the season, it felt like he was – kind of trying to do the Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes imitations where he's scrambling, but just to buy more time to throw the ball down the field. And I don't want that in college. I want 2022 Hendon Hooker that's making one read. Okay, now I'm going to check the second one. Okay, now I'm going to just run for 15 yards and pick up a first down. I do think you saw Nico do more of that against Florida. The problem was, especially in the first half, like 2 really good scrambles got called back to holding penalties. So they didn't really show up on the stat sheet. And it didn't really help your offense move. So I do think you saw Nico run a little bit more. I think that's going to help. I think he was very close on the deep balls that they did try to take in that game against Florida. I thought they just barely missed. And, I do think you saw some growing, some growth. But still, man, turning the ball over on the first drive just by dropping it, that's been a problem. He's got 5 fumbles alone against SEC competition. That's problematic. The interceptions I can live with sometimes, but to me, it's just the fumbles that are really starting to stack up, and that's going to hurt this offense, and it's going to hurt Nico and his confidence moving forward. So, again, loaded answer, loaded question. I wish I knew how to fix it, but I do think we saw some flashes of improvements against Florida.
So, John, as we turn our attention to the third Saturday in October, as you and I were talking off air, the SEC Unfiltered Tour is headed to Knoxville. And, John, fun fact, this will be my first ever game day at Neyland Stadium. So, in your words, what should I be expecting this weekend? Again, I've seen some great atmospheres and great venues, and I know that Neyland's going to live up to the hype as well.
Well, I'm really glad we beat Florida then for your sake as well, because if you'd have came in coming off of 2 straight losses, you might not gotten the full experience. What's your plan? Are you coming in Friday night? Are you doing the Friday night thing too? Or are you just going to save it all for Saturday?
Going to do the Friday night thing too. I've got a couple buddies that live about 10, 15 minutes from Neyland. They're Tennessee guys, Tennessee alums, really, really good dudes that I've known for a while. So I know they're going to take care of me. But, yeah, my plan's to get in town about just before dinner on Friday, 3, 4 o'clock, something like that. Probably walk around, explore a little bit, and then let the night begin and roll into the weekend. So
okay, I'm glad you got friends coming. I was going to offer you the invite so you could come tailgate with us, but if you got people,
hey, would love to stop by. Love to stop.
Either way, come by, see us. We'll be set up pretty early. No, I think you're going to have a great energy. On campus. The last time Tennessee and Alabama played in Knoxville was, I would say, a lot of people younger than me's best game in Tennessee football history. If you're there in that early 30s, late 20s range, that's probably the apex of your Tennessee fandom. So you're going to have a lot of people kind of chasing that dragon this weekend, I think. And it's not what it looked like 2 weeks ago, and it looked like it might be like number 1 versus number 3 or number 2 versus number 3, whatever you want to call it, depending on how you felt about Texas or whatever. But it's still a top 10 matchup, and it's still obviously very important to both programs. Tennessee kind of has to win this game to find their way into the playoff. And, it's the biggest home game. Josh Heupel's been really good at home, 16-1, I believe is the number of the last 17 games, the only loss being against Georgia. So, I expect a crazy atmosphere. And I expect the defense to be able to bother Milroe enough to keep Tennessee in the game, which means it's going to be 60 minutes of fun.
John, one of the fascinating aspects about this football game is I feel like neither fan base comes into this one overly confident. I mean, you look at Alabama's struggles, right? I mean, they lose to they almost blow it against Georgia, lose to Vanderbilt. You could argue should have lost to South Carolina. From what you've seen from this Alabama football team, what's your gauge on them? What are some areas you think Tennessee can sort of expose Alabama? And are there areas of concern that you watch them and say, hey, that could be a problem for the Vols?
Well, it feels to me that Alabama, and I'm not trying to ruffle any feathers. I don't really have any hatred for Kalen DeBoer or anything yet, but it feels to me like the Alabama season has been one really elite quarter and then a whole bunch of other stuff that they felt average to above average on. It feels like they played that first quarter against Georgia, that's as good a football as Alabama's played ever. But outside that one quarter, it feels like it's been a whole lot of trying to learn a new system and maybe having players like Milroe that doesn't necessarily fit the vision of DeBoer, because to me, Milroe seems about like what he's always been, really athletic, can run, and he's going to throw a really good deep ball. And, if you can make him stay in the pocket and try to pick you apart, they're going to struggle a little bit, and it seems like that's been the case with their offense. Defensively has been a surprise. The fact that Vandy, was able to kind of move the ball on them at will and And South Carolina was able to, at least hang around in that game. And Carson Beck, almost steals that game in the fourth quarter as well. That's not your typical Alabama defense that we're used to the last couple of years. So that's been the thing that surprised me the most. You obviously knew there'd be a drop-off after Nick Saban and, bringing in new defensive staff and, a guy that's not as good as Nick Saban at coaching defense. But still, man, like losing that Vandy, that's not the Alabama we're used to. Like, it's not even close. But you obviously throw that out when they come into Knoxville. You still have that fear factor. You still have that respect factor. So I do think they'll come in and play well. But I do think that unlike 22 with Bryce Young, I don't look at Jalen Milroe as that type of guy that can have a superhero type of performance that keeps them in the game. Because I don't know if you remember 22, like Bryce Young was completely out of his mind. Like he was playing one of the best games you'll ever see a quarterback play. And, almost single-handedly, won that game for Alabama. I think if Tennessee is able to put pressure on Alabama's offense like that, I think they'll have a lot more success against Milroe.
John, this game's always big no matter what, but I want you to talk significance of it. It's year 4 of Josh Heupel, year 1 of Kalen DeBoer. It kind of feels like, dare I say, a new era of this rivalry is beginning. Obviously, you won this game the last time it was in this building. Just importance of this game for Tennessee, because, again, I just feel like as a new era of the rivalry, it kind of feels like, again, a new chapter gets underway. Maybe taking advantage of, during the offseason, we had the conversation when Nick Saban retired, who does this benefit most? And I think, there was the common answers of Georgia or Texas coming in the league, but certainly Tennessee was one, right? I mean, Nick Saban tormented this fan base for years and years and years. I feel like there's got to be a feeling in Knoxville where it's like, okay, it's our turn to return the favor. And again, this rivalry's been really streaky. Importance to Josh Heupel in year 4, maybe getting off to a new streak against the Kalen DeBoer, who's still trying to find his footing in Tuscaloosa.
Well, yeah, I mean, go back to the beginning of Nick Saban's tenure, and it really would have behooved Tennessee to grab a couple of those early ones, right, to kind of set the tone and at least not let that record get to 15-0. So, I definitely think you want to start the rivalry out on the right foot with Kalen DeBoer. I don't think he has a Nick Saban type of run in him, longevity-wise there. But either way, you want to get some wins early. That way that coach can't start stacking them on you and it become a little bit of a mental thing. But, the way I've caught it on the radio, I think at this point, you're talking about year 4 of Josh Heupel, the Alabama win is by far his best win. I don't even really know at this point what number 2 is for Josh Heupel in his tenure. I've compared him to kind of Doc Rivers and the Celtics from 2008. They won that one championship, and that kind of has solidified Doc Rivers' career forever. Hey, he's a champion once. It feels like Josh Heupel's getting that type of run off of the 2022 Alabama win, because whenever you go to criticize him, Tennessee fans push back to, yeah, but we beat Alabama. Yeah, but do you remember that night in 2022? They can't take that from us. It's gotten a lot of run, and I really think he needs another big-time win, and what better team to do it against than Alabama at home again, and especially, against Kalen DeBoer in his first trip to Knoxville. If Kalen DeBoer comes in here and wins the first game in Knoxville, that just feels icky, for lack of a better word. It just feels like that would be so deflating to me, because you're right. When Nick Saban did leave Alabama, you did talk about your Georgia, you did talk about your Texas, and I do think it's proven to be true with Texas, right? And kind of how they've kind of stepped up into that power opening. And of course, it'll help them recruiting nationally and being able to recruit Texas and all those things. But you did look at Tennessee, a team that has, quite frankly, had a scheduled loss, for the last 15 years. It felt like every year you see Alabama, well, that's a loss. At the very least, it doesn't feel that way anymore. And you get here, and the game is essentially a coin flip on the point spread. Alabama's a slight favorite, but Tennessee's in position to protect home field and to get a signature win and to win this one and have the inside track to getting in the 12-team playoff. This game means a lot for Alabama. And, of course, you give it extra points for Josh Heupel in year 4 versus DeBoer in year 1. Although I will say, DeBoer kind of needs some good wins too, because I can't imagine Alabama fans are too thrilled with him after the last, month of football.
John, before we get you out of here, as we look at this game, key or keys to the game for the Tennessee Volunteers to take down Alabama on Saturday night?
I mean, football's simple, man. Pressure the other team's quarterback. Like, if they can pressure Jalen Milroe and keep him in the pocket and keep him from breaking their back with 20, 25, 30-yard scrambles on 3rd and 7, I think that puts Tennessee in a really good spot. On the flip side, like, Tennessee's offensive line has been inconsistent at very best. I think here locally, the Lance Hurd, the transfer from LSU, kind of one of the big NIL purchases of the offseason, has been really disappointing. Fans have really circulated some bad plays that he's had pop up on film / the TV broadcast. And people have lost a lot of confidence in Tennessee's ability to block. So I know this isn't the Alabamas of old when it comes to their front seven, but you got to give Nico some time if you're going to try to take the ball, shots down the field. The offensive line has to block. But I think football's simple. I think whoever affects the quarterback more is probably going to win. If Tennessee can do that to Milroe, especially, at home, I think Tennessee wins the game. It might be an old school, low scoring game, something like 23-17 again, or something in the low 20s. But I think Tennessee's got a really good chance of kind of bottling up that Alabama offense.
The cigars will be lit on Saturday night. Those in orange, just hope it's obviously the Tennessee folks that are smoking those at the end of the day. Jon Reed of Fox Sports Knoxville. John, let folks know where they can check out your work and obviously listen to the radio show you guys do every single morning.
Yeah, check us out, the Fan Run Radio app. You can download that, fanrunradio.com. I'm JON2_Reed on Twitter. I put out some videos. I put out some content from time to time. Before I go, though, can you give me your quick thoughts on the things I said? So, give me your 60-second kind of summation of what you see with Nico from a more unbiased perspective.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I think in any industry, John, whether it be sales, it be podcasting, it be playing quarterback, there's a light bulb moment for everyone. I think for Nico, maybe the confidence isn't quite all the way there. I think there's kind of this conservativeness of not wanting to pull the trigger. I think he's going to have to do that on Saturday night. I think he will. I believe in Josh Heupel and his offensive system against Kane Womack, who I feel like has just been trying to come up for air all season long and has been getting schemed up by everyone he plays. I think it's a combination of things. I saw a couple plays in the Florida game. I don't think it's all on Nico. It's very easy to blame the quarterback for all the offensive struggles. But I think his receivers have got to help him out. I think they got to turn 50-50 balls into 80-20 balls. I think, hey, I say that. They just got to catch the balls they're supposed to catch, too. I mean, I think that's something that will change the stat line, change the outlook. To your point, the offensive line hasn't been great either. But you couple all of those things and those miscues with a young quarterback, we have to keep in mind how young Nico Iamaleava is. I'm giving him a little bit more grace than some others. And again, I think that breakout game is going to happen against Power 4 competition, I might add. I know he's had big games, but against Power 4 competition, we haven't seen it. I actually think it's going to happen against Alabama, and Tennessee is my pick in this football game. I think a little bit higher scoring. I got the Vols 31-28, but I think that light bulb moment's going to happen for him. The running game is there. Pass pro's got to be better. Wide receivers have got to step up, but Nico, it's in there. Like, this guy isn't a bum. I think he's everything we think he can be. It's just, when is it going to click? I mean, I think it's got to happen on Saturday. I think it will for Nico. So I saw him in person in Fayetteville. Again, it just felt really timid. It felt conservative. It's the game's moving a little bit fast. But again, I think he's going to have that light bulb moment. So I certainly have not sold on my stock on Nico quite yet.
Okay, good. That makes me feel better. A lot of people have been jumping off ship, even here locally, and I think if you win this game on Saturday, all's forgiven, right? Like, it's the season starts on Saturday is what I wrote on fanrunradio.com. Like, you got to the point where now it matters, and if Nico wins this game and you beat Florida and Alabama back-to-back weeks, then you'll have people that already think the 8 million NIL number was worth it if you just win these two games. So you made me feel a little bit better there.
Yeah, and I think to your point, John, too, lastly, keys to the game. I think quarterback run game is a big part of this. I think, again, Nico is a gifted runner. I think you mentioned this. I think he needs to use it. I do. I would say make those two reads and go, kind of like you were talking about with Hendon Hooker. Like, you don't have to be Brett Favre back there. You don't have to prove anything with your arm. Just use your God-given abilities to the best of your ability. I think slowing down the Jalen Milroe run game is going to be a huge part of this game because, to your point, if you can make him uncomfortable, keep him in the pocket, if you can force him to beat you through the air, try to take away the deep ball as much as possible, you like your chances. So I do think quarterback run game, which defense can limit that the best, is going to have a lot of success. But, man, if you're Nico, I don't know if you've seen the Swamp Kings documentary. I know we're talking Tennessee, but when Urban Meyer said his mentor, I believe it was Woody Hayes, said, "Let the fucker fly," that's what I would tell Nico. Just let it fly, man. Like, let it hang out. There's nothing to hold back in this game. Go out there, and I'm not saying play backyard ball, but be loose, have fun. That's when you're going to play your best. And, again, I think that's when that light bulb's going to click on for Nico.
Yeah, you haven't seen that from Nico at all. You've seen a guy that's been afraid to make mistakes.
Very
and
calculated.
That's been,
very, yeah.
When you're athletic as he is, you need to play a little bit faster and a little bit more reckless. And maybe, I don't know, last week against Florida, Josh Heupel went for 4th and 1 on his own 10-yard line. So maybe you'll see more of an aggressive approach the entire week. And like you said, let that fucker fly, because that's what we've been wanting to see happen with Nico. But it's almost like something clicked in him against NC State when he threw that first interception across the middle of the field. It's like he almost lost his confidence. But then I say that, and he threw it into quadruple coverage against Florida. I don't know if you saw that interception. One of the worst throws I've ever seen inside Neyland Stadium. So maybe find a balance between letting it fly and not throwing into quadruple coverage.
John, either way, going to be a classic this weekend. Can't wait to get up to Rocky Top, and obviously we'll link up over the weekend, man. Appreciate you taking the time. Let's definitely do it again soon.
Yeah, for sure. Enjoy Knoxville. Hope to see you. Safe travels. I know getting over that mountain's a little bit tricky right now, so hopefully it's not too much of a headache, but I'll see you Saturday.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, John.